What if the Roman Empire never rose? Imagine a world with no Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon, no Pax Romana, no foundation for so much of what we call Western civilization. Would democracy even exist? Would the Americas have been colonized in the same way? Or would the world be a fractured wasteland of forgotten tribes and lost languages? Tonight, we journey through an alternate timeline, a world where Rome never was. Welcome to Neo Historica AI in our timeline. Rome began as a small, unassuming settlement on the Tiber River, but in this world, its destiny is snuffed out before it can even ignite. Perhaps it was a single devastating plague, a catastrophic flood, or a failed unification effort that erased it from the map before it ever had a chance to be born. Without Rome's meteoric rise, the powerful Etruscans would have likely dominated the Italian peninsula, their influence spreading unchecked. But their vision was different. Trade would remain local, confined to familiar shores. The grand ambitions of Roman engineering, the roads, the aqueducts, the monumental architecture would never materialize. Writing systems might stagnate, and the very idea of empire, that powerful concept of a unified state, would die in its cradle. Italy, instead of becoming the heart of a global power, would remain a patchwork of rival city-states and tribes, its potential forever unrealized. The spark that was Rome has been extinguished, and the course of history is irrevocably altered. Without Rome, Europe descends into a state of perpetual chaos. There is no unifying code of law, no concept of a Roman peace to enforce stability across vast territories. The continent splinters, not into nations, but into thousands of warring tribes, each fighting for survival and dominance. The Celts might solidify their rule over Gaul, their culture flourishing without Roman conquest. The Greek city-states, without a powerful neighbor to eventually absorb them, might remain isolated, their philosophies and innovations contained within their own borders. And the Germanic tribes, the so-called barbarians, evolve faster, unhindered by the Roman legions. They would forge their own brutal version of order, a world defined by the sword and the shield, not the Senate and the scroll. A continent without Latin as its lingua franca becomes a land without a shared identity, a Babel of tongues with no common ground. The intricate network of roads that once connected the empire is never built, leaving forests dark and travel perilous. Europe is not a continent on the path to unification, but a mosaic of tribal conflicts, a dark age that might never end. Christianity, the faith that would come to define the Western world, owes its rapid expansion to the very infrastructure of the Roman Empire. Its missionaries and apostles traveled Rome's roads, they preached in its bustling cities, and they found a diverse and connected populace within its borders. Without Rome, Christianity likely remains a small, local belief system, confined to a forgotten province in Judea, its universal message never reaching a global audience. In this vacuum, another power rises unchecked. Islam, emerging from the Arabian Peninsula, would face no comparable, organized force in the West. It could sweep across North Africa and into Europe with little resistance. The Middle East becomes the world's dominant cultural, scientific, and military power centuries earlier than in our timeline. Consequently, the moral codes, ethical frameworks, and philosophical ideas derived from Judeo-Christian thought ideas that would later shape the Enlightenment and form the bedrock of nations like the United States never take root in Europe. The world's spiritual and ethical compass now points in a completely different direction. The great flame of knowledge that was the Renaissance was kindled by embers from Rome's dying fire. Europe's rebirth was fueled by the rediscovery of lost texts preserved in Rome's libraries and monasteries. Without Rome, there are no great libraries to rediscover. There is no Renaissance. There is no Leonardo, no Galileo, no Newton to stand on the shoulders of giants that never existed. Europe lags centuries behind in science, mathematics, and philosophy. The intellectual torch is instead carried by Asia and the burgeoning Islamic world. They become the epicenters of global technology, innovation, and trade. Their ships chart the oceans, their astronomers map the stars, and their thinkers define the cutting edge of human knowledge. By the year 1800, the new world of the Americas might still belong largely to nature and its indigenous peoples, untouched by European sails. The United States, with its Constitution and its ideals of freedom built upon Roman legal principles and Enlightenment philosophy, is an impossible dream. The world we know is simply not there. Without Rome, the very idea of centralized order, of a universal civilization, collapses. Humanity's path fractures into a million different streams. Yet, nature and human society adapt. In the absence of a single superpower, countless smaller empires might rise and fall among the tribes of Europe, Africa, and Asia. The world is undoubtedly darker, more violent, and more fragmented. But perhaps it is also freer in strange and unexpected ways. It would be a world of countless paths, a kaleidoscope of cultures developing in complete isolation, but with no shared destiny, no common human story to bind us together. The echo of this lost empire is the silence of laws never written, cities never built, and a future that never was. Rome shaped the very soul of humanity, not just through its presence, but through the void its absence would create. A world without it isn't just different, it's unrecognizable. This thought experiment is not just a journey into alternate history. It's a warning. Every empire, no matter how mighty, eventually ends. But its shadow, the legacy it leaves behind, never truly dies. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you want to explore more of history's lost possibilities, make sure to subscribe to Neo Historica AI. We'll see you in the next timeline.